watching the first 2 films, I thought, all right, this is a good story. Who knows how faithful the films are or whatever, but it's a good story, so I'll start reading. And I picked up the first book, and before I knew it was on the 5th book, because those 5 were available at the time. And as far as whether I knew I'd be writing, I just thought I was reading good books at the time. And the way that I got into it was that I realized that I had become so obsessed with this series of literature that I was keeping a blog at the time, and started to realize that almost everything I posted about was Harry Potter. And I thought, boy, maybe I should just move this away from here and do this in its own space. And so I created, I think, and there were live journals at the time by Harry Potter fans, but I don't think there was a dedicated blog on Harry Potter at the time. So I created swordofgryffindor.com, which was I think the first dedicated Harry Potter blog. Shortly after John Granger's site went up, and the two of us started teaming up a little bit. And so I was writing this sort of Gryffindor blog and decided to completely geek out and go to this conference in 2007. So I submitted 4 papers to Harry Potter Education Fanon for their Prophecy 2007 conference. And 3 of them were accepted. And so I went there, and this John Granger, which I think many of you met, this weird little guy, comes, and he, an amazing, brilliant man, comes to me at that conference, and he takes me out for dinner and says, will you write a book for Zosima Press? And so I didn't even have to, I just got lucky. I didn't have to submit a manuscript. I didn't have to go through the whole process of getting an agent. I just, was approached to write on Harry Potter. He was impressed with what I'd been writing at the blog, and it's since turned into the hogshead.org and the Hogshead podcast and all of that. But it just, a lot of accidents really got me into this. So.
You've already sort of touched on this, the fact that Harry Potter kind of came of age with its readership at the same time that new media was coming of age. And so at the same time you were publishing, traditional hard copy books, you were also blogging and podcasting and such. How do you think, what do you see as the relationship between the social networking and the ability to have immediate connection with other people who are interested, fans and other scholars, versus the kind of traditional media that you work with? How does all that fit?
It's extremely important to the Harry Potter phenomenon. Huge. I mean, it isn't what it is now without the new social media. A couple of months ago, I went back and watched Twin Peaks on Netflix, the only 2 seasons that existed. And after every episode, I found myself thinking, I wonder what people were theorizing at the time. What would happen next? And it occurred to me that they could only do that in their workplaces or with their friends or whatever. There was no place where everybody could go and just start, what happened? What do we think about it? No debates about what's coming next. And especially everything that happened in between books 6 and 7, all the theorizing, all of that, there had never been anything like it before. And so I don't think Harry Potter is as popular as it is. I think it would have been a popular series, but 20 years ago, it isn't what it is today because of that, because the community could build up around it, because there were forums and chat rooms and blogs, and then MySpace became this big place for Wizard Rock, so people are putting on their music on there, and all of this is coming together at the same time as these books are being released and as we're getting the films, and so it's this big media explosion that contributed, I think, hugely to the popularity of Harry Potter.
Would you say you have more listeners, more blog readers, or more book readers in terms of your own audience for your work?
Blog readers the most. Primarily because the blog's been consistent, the podcast has not been consistent. It is now. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Hogshead podcast, but every Monday night on Middle Earth Network, we do it live now, and there's a chat room where you can ask questions. So look up Middle Earth Network, Middle Earth Network Radio, and anybody who wants can join the chat. And but definitely the blog has been more readers there. And in fact, I've thought about trying to create ways to just start delivering the content from the books, ebooks I want to do. It hasn't been done yet with my publisher. And I often just want to put my book on there and just let people read it. And if they want to buy a hard copy, go for it. But my publisher wouldn't be happy about that, but I would. I think that it would probably generate more sales if people could get a PDF free and then want their own copy of it. But that's a whole different way of thinking about literature and what the new media can do. But studies have shown that people put their book out there for free and they get better sales. So
Cory Doctorow, Tobias Beckell, people like that.
Yeah. So definitely more blog readers than anything else, and hopefully more. The publishing is a side thing for me, honestly. I wasn't submitting a book to be published. I was asked to, and so I just started organizing my content. And it was funny because I thought, I've done this much material already on the blog, so I'll refine it. I'll put it in 17 chapters and slap it together. Well, it's not that simple as you know to put a book together. You've got to make it make sense from start to finish, and so the process of writing was quite a bit more painful than I thought it would be. But there are some people who are writers, and I consider myself a writer. I love to write. I need to write. But there are people who say, I just can't not write. And I wish I were one of those people, because I could very easily not write. I love to do it, but when to actually put out good content is very difficult, and that's why I've switched over to writing more at the blog and podcasting and doing the essay books instead, so I can let other people kind of put content out there and collect good content. There was a cartoon that I posted on my Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and it said, "This is what real inspiration is." And there's somebody sitting in a computer, and there's somebody with a gun to their head saying, "Write!" When it comes to writing a book, that's what that's like for me. I love doing it, but it's hard to do. It's not easy work, and there isn't that immediate feedback. That's part of what's so great about blogging and writing online, is that there's an instant conversation. You're not the authority from on high. You're the person who's starting a conversation. So I like that atmosphere a lot better for working out ideas. There aren't that many original thoughts. So I like the idea of analysis of Harry Potter happening in a conversation more than happening kind of from on high. So.
You mentioned your edited books. There's been discussion and analysis of the fact that usually when a book series comes out and people do analysis, the first people who look at it are the literature people, right? And you having the first dedicated blog, you come from a theological background. If the Leaky Cauldron is to be believed, I was the first professor to ever offer a course on Harry Potter anywhere. Historian, you've worked with so many scholars putting your essay books together from philosophy, from these other fields. Is it something about Harry Potter that it automatically has a multidisciplinary scholarly audience, or is it that the literature people weren't doing it and so the other fields had to step in? Or is there something other that explains that?
I think there's a combination of things going on there. The Ivory Tower in Harry Potter was 2004, and I think reading Harry Potter was 2003, I think. And John Granger was 2003 or 4, and your class was 2002, I think. And Harry Potter was a Hobbit, 2003, somewhere around there. Your article.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So I think it sounds to me like the literature people got there first. Although what that looks like in depending on the school and the discipline is going to be different. So depending on the framework of the thought of the school or the English department, there's a lot of blending now. So literature studies blend just as easily with gender studies and political studies and that kind of thing. So I think that to some extent the blended nature of maybe what postmodernism has done to the way we think about education might play a role there. I think that Harry Potter itself does invite significant multidisciplinary study. I think that, and I argued that Rowling herself doesn't have any degree in psychology, but she almost completely followed the DSM-4 on narcissistic personality disorder for Voldemort. So he meets all 9 criteria. So I think that she it's true. So I think that because she is an obsessive, if she was going to treat the subject, she was going to treat it thoroughly. So she read a ridiculous amount about alchemy. She said she doesn't have a degree in magic, but if she's going to treat a subject, and she's going to do it right. So if she's going to treat a personality disorder or a character with one, then she's going to research it thoroughly. So I think it invites a lot of different disciplines. I think the fact that it is her genre blending plays a role there. I think that because she's mixing together so many elements that it, of course, appeals to a wider field. And then, of course, there's the commercial aspect of it that, every Harry Potter's popular. So if I can tie my discipline to Harry Potter or publish a book on that, then it'll make me money. So that plays a role in there, too. I joke that eventually there's going to be a skier's guide to Harry Potter and a zoologist's guide to Harry Potter. And, everybody wants kind of a piece of the Harry Potter pie. So that plays a role as well.
Would you tell us a bit more about your edited works and what you have on the horizon, and sort of tied to that, where you see Harry Potter studies going next?
So the 2 books out right now, well, the kind of one's partly out. The one that is out and available is Hogshead Conversations. That was supposed to end up being a series, but I since left that publisher, so we're not continuing with it. But it's called Hogshead Conversations Volume 1. It is, in fact, the only volume of Hogshead Conversations that there will be. But that came out of, once again, the publisher asking me to put together. I was heading off to Portis 2008 in Dallas, and they said, come back with a bunch of essays that'll work. And I came back with, maybe 7 that did and 3 that didn't, and they're all in there. But overall, a good collection. I'm very happy with the way most of that book turned out, and then there's Harry Potter for Nerds, which is where the essay books will go from here. I'll probably be Harry Potter for Nerds Part 2, Revenge of the Nerds or something. I don't know. I'll come up with some kind of thing. Basically what I'm looking to do is, primarily, I'm not putting out a call for papers, to be frank about it. I'm trying to get a blend of people who are at the academic level and fans who are just very intelligent and are doing great analysis. I think that some of the best discoveries in this series have come from just really rabid fans, not from any literary scholar, not from anyone with a degree. So I'm trying to blend that. And so Harry Potter for Nerds from here on out is going to be this, there'll maybe be 5 essays from people who hold positions in universities and 5 essays from people who don't. So I'm going to continue with this when I have time. That's the hard part about it. So I'm hoping to begin sometime next year collecting a new batch of essays, a new Harry Potter for Nerds batch of essays. And, they end up just coming to me. People say, hey, are you doing another one? Because I've got an idea. And then I collect a pile and sort through them and decide what to do from there. But I think that, again, the publishing will remain a side thing. The primary thing I'll be doing is this every Monday night podcast, of course. And also next semester, John Granger, James Thomas, and I are going to be teaching an online course. The Middle-earth Network created this thing called Mythgard Institute, which is offering online courses for either that can be audited or that will apply eventually to an MA credit and all that. So we're teaching an online course next semester. Yeah.
Okay, 2-part question. You can take one part or the other, or both, or whatever you'd like to do. You already touched on this in your talk at 10. Whether in 30 years we're still going to be talking about this. Is the next Harry Potter actually Harry Potter because we're not moving on? This is going to be enough, it's fertile enough for long conversations. I'd love for you to talk a bit more about what you see as the staying power of the series. But I'd also be interested in knowing what you think is the new Harry Potter, if there is a new Harry Potter, or where we could look for it.
On the second, I haven't seen it yet, but I haven't seen it yet. That doesn't mean much because over the past year I've been so bogged down in this new job that I haven't read anything new. So I've kind of revisited old stuff over the past year, stuff that I already knew. So I don't know. You can probably answer better than anything out there that might be worthy of that. I'm behind on the young adult literature right now. I think we'll see a similar, although not as intense, phenomenon around maybe when the Hunger Games movies are released. I think that was generating a significant amount of excitement. The Hunger Games, as the 3rd book came out, not to the extent of Harry Potter, but still. So we may see a little bit that on movies. I think that we'll probably see a few books published on it and that kind of thing. The first question, the staying power of Harry Potter. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be around a long time. I think that because so much has happened in the last, how many years now, 10, 11, 12 years, with the community building up around it. I think it's got a bigger start even than some of the other things like Star Trek that had big starts and have continued. I think because we see that continuing, I think we'll see that happening with Harry Potter as well. It'll continue to have a presence in things like Comic-Con and all that, but I think its own, especially with the Wizarding World now, an actual theme park, I mean, that's going to be there for a long time. So as long as that's sitting down there, people are going to be gathering down there for conferences. So unless for some reason in 30 years people wonder why this big castle is sitting here at Universal Studios and completely forget about it, I think this is a pretty long-lasting thing. And some of the excitement is fading, obviously. I think that Leaky and MuggleNet are kind of slowing down and not doing as many podcasts. And I think that the MuggleNet guys went off and did a Twilight podcast for a while, and I don't know if they're still doing that. And moved on to some other pop cultural podcasts. So there were a few other, they're branching out. I've spoken with Melissa recently from Leaky Cauldron, and she said that they're down to maybe one podcast a month, and they want the Potter Pundits to do another one, so they have two per month. But most of the news now, though, is what is Ivana Lynch doing, or what is Dan Radcliffe doing? Like, for some reason, it's Harry Potter news that Dan Radcliffe is in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And that's not Harry Potter news, but that just shows that things are fading a bit, and I think that they will, but there will still be a pretty committed core of people who keep meeting and keep this kind of thing up. So, yeah.
My last question, so I can open it up and see if others have questions. Pottermore. Mm-hmm. What do you think that will do, A, for the Harry Potter phenomenon, in the sense that it has not only extra content, but also a new social networking opportunity? Yeah. But what do you think it might mean for publishing, that an author will has that kind of direct-to-reader experience, interactive experience, and control over digital and audio and distribution and that sort of way. Yeah. So what does it mean for Harry Potter, but also what does it mean, do you think, for publishing?
Okay, so let's start with Pottermore, which I did get on. Is anybody else on Pottermore yet? We got a few. Okay, so we got a few on Pottermore. And I'll tell you, I haven't logged in 3 weeks, a month. So far, the initial experience of getting into Pottermore was interesting. There's a lot of content not on it yet. So there's only the first book, and essentially what it does is it walks you through the books. And so you get to Diagon Alley, you buy all your stuff. You go to Gringotts, you go to Ollivander's, and you take a little quiz, and the wand chooses you, and all this kind of stuff. You get to another point where there's a quiz, and you get sorted. Here's what's interesting about it to me. I've taken sorting hat quizzes before. I'm sure everybody has. Everybody kind of identifies with the house, maybe. Ravenclaw, yeah, see. And so there's something about this that maybe it's just me, but it feels like it's the real and final one, because Rowling is behind it, right? So she created these quizzes, and she's the one. But so you feel like when you get sorted, you really did get sorted. It isn't just some quiz you can. But it's interesting because here's the thing about Pottermore. There's a lot of controversy about the sorting. There are 1 million people on there, and they're divided up almost exactly evenly across the 4 houses. So people are going, really? Like, are we just getting randomly thrown into places? Is the whole world really that even when it comes to sorting? So, is it real? Isn't it? It's a big debate right now. And some people got so mad where they got sorted they deleted their accounts. So, for me, it was an interesting experience. I expected to get Ravenclaw. I got Gryffindor. So, my wife expected to get Gryffindor and got Hufflepuff. So. The interesting thing about my wife is that she really is a Hufflepuff. So so now I've come to love Hufflepuffs, because now I have to. So Pottermore is interesting. It's not that exciting yet. A lot of the features are down right now, like the dueling feature is down. The potions feature is maddening. You lift these little vials up and try to dump them in, and they shake all over on you, and you're spilling whatever gross, disgusting ingredients all over the place, and so it's frustrating to use. And I haven't been on there much lately, but I hope. And they're having server issues, so even with just the 1 million that are on there, it's frequently down. So I think they've got a ways to go. It was supposed to have been opened Monday, I think, and I don't know if it still will be. I don't think they're planning on it. The ebooks are delayed till next year. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with it. I don't know what to expect with the coming books, or whether they have other good ideas. But some of the backstory is interesting. The McGonagall stuff is great. I was very interested, just from my own perspective, to find that one of the added bits of information was that alchemy is an upper-level course at Hogwarts, an elective if there's enough interest, which is interesting because alchemy is so important to the series, and so there's another hat tip to that. Luna's original name was Lily Moon, not Little Lovegood. It's interesting. But then you have the whole question of canon. So Rowling's adding stuff. Is this stuff that was in her backstory boxes from years ago? Is she changing things now based on her evolving idea of the story? So there will be debates about, is it only the 7 books that are canon, or is it the 7 books and the 3 additional books, or is it everything Rowling says? Because, then you've got the problem of between books 6 and 7, Grindelwald was dead, according to Rowling. And then he showed up, still alive, in book 7. So how much do you trust what Rowling says about her books now that they're published and out there? So all of that will be a continuing debate. It's one of the reasons that I don't want the Scottish book. I don't want the encyclopedia. I know a lot of people do. I want her to give us the backstories. Give it to us in story form. If you're gonna, give us the Tales from Middle Earth. Give us the Tolkien type stuff. Not just an encyclopedia of this is what Rowling says on every subject in Harry Potter. So we'll see. As far as the bigger question of publishing, we're in. I don't know how well I can answer this, but I'll try. We're in what seems to me to be a gigantic change in how content is delivered. Ebooks are selling better than print books. You don't necessarily have to have a big house publisher to be successful in ebooks now. You can self-publish ebooks and do better than you might have done if you had published with Random House or some other big company. So we're seeing a big shift. We're seeing it all over with the digital media now, with music and everything. And so
podcast your novel for free and then get a publishing contract.
Exactly. So it's, and of course there are going to be people who fight that. And so the question with Pottermore is going to be, what is a big group that lives on copyright and trademarking like Warner Brothers going to do? Are they going to further the move toward more accessible media and close interaction between authors and people? Or are they going to kind of have to it, and so that they can keep making money? I'm pretty sure that eventually the Hog's Head is trademarked now by Warner Brothers. So I'm just sitting here waiting for the letter, because I have the site thehogshead.org, and they already made me take down. I had a Zazzle store up with everything from just logos from my site. So it was the Hog's Head Zazzle store. Warner Brothers forced Zazzle to shut it down. It's amazing. So I'm waiting for the letter, that I can't use my site anymore. So I don't know. I don't know where that's all going to go. It's just guessing, I think it's obviously I'm in favor of more interaction between authors and podcasting books and offering them for free and all that. That's I'm in that direction just philosophically, but I don't know how much Pottermore will further that.
What questions do you have, Travis?
I have one, but it's about the book. It's a thing that I thought about, and I hope it comes off in the right form of question. So, with the Deathly Hallows, I was recently rereading book 5, and Moody had said that he had invisibility cloaks. So I was wondering, what your thoughts were about how you can believe in the 3 Deathly Hallows, one being an invisibility cloak, if you have Moody who says somebody's borrowing his other invisibility cloak. Can you replicate them, or is that where the myth part of the Deathly Hallows comes in?
Yeah, good question. There's a little bit of detail conflict in the series on this, I think. Ron, I don't know that she had I know that she had a lot of book 7 plotted out well in advance of even writing book one. But when Ron makes the statement about invisibility cloaks that they're very rare in book one, you just get the idea that this is some kind of there are more than one. Rare doesn't mean just one. So there you've got they're very rare. So here's one of maybe 30 in the world or whatever, just throwing out a number. By book 5, there's a charm you can throw on one, I think. Is the disillusionment charm?
Yes.
So that's how I think invisibility cloaks are made with disillusionment charms, but they fade over time. So those are probably the kind that Moody was talking about. But then the question is, why do you need it on the cloak? Why can't you just do it to yourself? I mean, all those kinds of things. So there's a little bit of conflict on this. Dumbledore can make himself invisible, which I think is described as such a powerful disillusionment charm that he can make himself. So maybe you need a certain amount of magical power to make one successfully. So I think there's a lot of questions about that. I do suspect, because of how tightly woven the plot was in book 7, people might disagree with me on that, but I think that she had the idea that there was something extra unique about that cloak planned plenty in advance. In fact, that was one of the questions she said she was surprised never got asked her. Why did Dumbledore have that cloak? So she had something in mind way back at the beginning with that cloak. But there is kind of sketchy details on it. I hope that at least half answers the question.
Other questions?
I have one. Are the theoretical approaches to the book dividing up into subgenres? So, for example, is there a film studies, subgenre that's been established and would it ever be kosher to talk about the films totally separate from the books? I mean, I know that. So that's just a general question.
It's a good question. I think that David Yates has made that pretty difficult with the last 3 movies because basically the approach he took with 5, 6, and 7 was, I'm going to leave some details here that if you haven't read the books, you're going to have no idea what's going on. So I think it might be really hard to do that, and it's hard for us to imagine doing it because we've all read the books. But there is definitely stuff, if you've not read, that I don't know how the films would make sense. Some of the films would make any sense if you didn't have the whole story in mind. So I think that would be hard to handle those 7 alone without any reference to the books. I mean, it can be done, and it certainly has been done. That a film made from a book is studied just as its own film without reference to it. But I think Yates has made it difficult. I think the next Harry Potter for Nerds is going to have an essay on the films. Like Janet Scott Batchelor, who wrote a book in between book 6 and 7, works in Hollywood. She was one of the writers on Batman Returns. I think she's going to do some analysis on that. But there has not been a full book just on the films yet. There are definitely lots of subgenre approaches to Harry Potter, though, psychology of Harry Potter.
We have time for one more question. I'm dying to ask. Last chance.
I've got one more.
Well, you have one more. Go for it. You go ahead then.
You mentioned the fact that sort of the big clearinghouse sites like MuggleNet or Leaky seem to be slowing down. Would you say that to balance this, there is a rise in sort of regional, decentralized events, sort of more like this, or like 3 weeks ago, UNC Charlotte had the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that phenomenon, and what do you make of that?
Most definitely. Today alone, there's this and a Death Day party at UNCC, and tomorrow there is a Harry Potter Philosophy Conference at Marymount that I'm going to, and just a week or 2 ago there was one in Edinburgh, PA. So a whole bunch of stuff all clustered into one little area. Next year, both Leaky and HPEF are having big events. Then there's another Harry Potter conference at St. Andrews in Scotland. And yeah, I'm seeing these little other things popping up all over the place. And I wouldn't be surprised if that continues. I was really surprised at the energy behind the UNCC group. I met with them last night, and they're still moving. I mean, they've got this Potterwatch group that is very active. They come every Monday night. Now it's one of their events. They come every Monday night to this podcast that I do. They go to Middle Earth Network and they join and they talk. And so there is still local enthusiasm for Harry Potter. Last 2 years ago, I went out to Arizona State University, and Joel Hunter there is part of the Barrett Honors College, runs the Harry Potter Society. So these kinds of things are happening all over the place. Yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.